Wagwan, are you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The number one podcast in America, dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and charges. The one and only Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast.
Wagwan, are you there? What's good? And welcome to episode 29 of the Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast, the world's most cultured podcast. I'm your host and humble extrovert, Glenn, aka G Ransom on Instagram. And for today's discussion, which if you're a fan or follower of the podcast, know it's a subject that's very dear and close to my heart. That's right, y'all. We talking about that Mary Jane, that cannabis, that bud, that sticky icky, that ganja, that perp hash, that grass, that reefer, but specifically first-time edible experiences, infusions, and a bit of weed science. And I can thank our guest today, Charity Howard, food scientist and consultant for food and beverage at Dope Culinary, for making that possible, as she'll be lending her expertise and personal experiences on the matter. Now, if you know, this is actually going to be our second to last episode before we end the season. So we definitely wanted to do this to give y'all a little something special before we call it good night for the season. And we got to keep it cultured. So, definitely stick around for the discussion. And a full guest intro will follow once we pay our tributes. So before we delve any further, if you aren't already a follower, perhaps tuning in for the first time, would like to learn more about the show, definitely check us out on Instagram at Jerk Jollof Collard Pod, where you can stay up to date on our latest offerings, announcements, and join the JJC community. Now, anything about this show, you know that I roll with a mean team of some of the most non-jiving, copacetic, baddest mofos on this side of the diaspora, aka my brothers in bond. And today we actually working with a little bit of a short staff, but we have the original, the OG of the podcast on joining me today, Mr. D-Ron, aka D-Black, Mr. Naira himself.
What's good, yo? You got people really calling me Mr. Naira.
Bro, you gotta represent the currency, man. You just gotta represent. That's your homeland. You know what I mean? It's gonna be worth something one day. I'm telling you.
One day it's gonna be worth something again. Not today.
I hear you. It's coming. So we gotta pay our tribute. So to complement today's discussion, I'd like to dedicate this episode's Retro shout out to Roll Up Life Inc., which is a Black-owned technology-based cannabis company that offers a unique and secure delivery experience covering all transportation needs for growers, dispensaries, and consumers in New Jersey. Roll Up Life aims to be the premier delivery solution for both CBD and THC products within NJ and possibly all of the East Coast. I'd like to add that I personally met the founder and CEO, Tyon Bryant, and COO, co-founder, Precious Osage Arese, and have been blazing the trail on both the social equity and logistical front of the cannabis industry. As advocates for representation within the industry through their partnerships, Roll Up Life was able to raise $100K in funding to help minority business owners in the cannabis space. Roll Up Life aims to make cannabis delivery simple and cool. When you call them, they'll roll up. Go ahead and support this business by placing an order or checking them out on their website at www.rolluplife.com or following them on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter at rollup.life to stay up to date on their latest moves, progress, and as always, show them some JJC love. Now, we love it when we have guests on the show. We don't know how to act like toddlers, so let's get it started by introducing today's guest, as you've probably seen on our promotional post, Charity Howard at Dope Culinary RXNS. Charity, say what's up.
Hi, how's everyone doing?
Doing well. Thank you for joining us today.
Welcome.
So I just got a little quiz question for you, Charity, real quick.
Okay.
If you can only survive off of one dish, I'm going to list the dishes for you. Which would it be? Jerk, jollof, or collard greens? You choose one for the rest of your life. Which would it be?
I was born in Mississippi and raised in Tennessee. It's going to be the collards for me. I am a true Southern girl.
Okay. One for collard greens. Unfortunately, none of our collard greens representatives are on the line right now.
Oh, man.
Shout out to the collard green team. Shout out to the collard greens team.
Team.
Where y'all at?
We'll let them know.
Okay.
All right, so Charity, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do and where you're from. You already mentioned that you're from Mississippi. You live in by way of Tennessee currently.
Yeah, well, something like that. So I was born in Mississippi, and moved to Tennessee around about middle school age. So I then went to the University of Tennessee, where I majored in food science and technology, and decided I wanted to be a product development food scientist. Which has led me through a very innovative career, making stops at large restaurant food brands such as KFC Corporation, Burger King Corporation down in Miami, lived there for a while. I've worked on the sales side with some major beverage companies based here in Atlanta. So yeah, I've had a pretty robust career doing that, which also led me to the cannabis industry.
Very nice, which is our topic of discussion today. So I guess basically, what does a food scientist do exactly? If you could probably break that down for us real quick.
Yeah, day in the life. So there are a few areas within the food science discipline. Some go the quality assurance, quality control route, on the manufacturing side or on the food service side, to where you're ensuring the quality, consistency, and safety of the food ongoing. And then some may go the product development route, which is obviously the route I took, which is true food innovation. So what that means is, as you're seeing plant-based foods and meats and chickens, as you're getting more gluten-free options packaged, in the grocery store, or, when Burger King comes out with their latest iteration of chicken fries, there's a food scientist behind that, that is designing the product from the sensory attributes, the flavor, the texture, the aroma, taking in cues from the customer that we know we're serving to, so that demographic, if I'm at a fast food company that over indexes in African Americans 18 to 34, if I know that flavor profile as a food scientist is high sugar, high salt content, then that's what I'm going to cater my product to be. So just kind of taking all of that in and designing the product from there.
Gotcha. So basically, before any of these foods that are available to the consumer hit the market, it goes through this kind of rigorous process to say, hey, this is the profile we want to meet based on our demographics. How can you tailor the product to taste like this every time, or look like this, or feel like this, is basically
exactly
one aspect of it.
Aspect of it. Yep.
Gotcha,
how's that different from food formulation? Like from the formulation or food?
Well, it is.
It's the same thing. Okay.
Yeah. So a food chemist would fall within the food science discipline, just like a food microbiologist, or, same type thing. Some people go the sensory science route. So, but the basis of it is a food science and or technology degree.
Okay. How do I break into the food tasting part though?
Well, I imagine she has to taste everything she puts out there too, right? Like you're probably like the first taste tester before it even goes back to the...
Yeah.
Oh, is it like Ben and Jerry's where they got the little gold spoon and they got the but they got a piece of chicken on it?
Something like that. No, when designing a product, again, some of it is kind of the research, right? Of the research part of the research and development you've done, but some of it also definitely is that of, the discernment of the palate of whoever is formulating it. So, if I know how to make something taste good, I'm gonna make it taste good, and then the rest of the world gonna taste it too, depending on where I am.
Gotcha. Okay. So were you involved at all? Just curious, in the constructing of the Popeyes chicken sandwich at all? No?
No, I've never worked for that brand, but I know a lot of people that do, and they've done well with that sandwich.
Okay, but I heard you mentioned KFC as well. I know I was in Georgia for a bit, and one thing, I was visiting my brother D, they take their chicken seriously, like the wings and everything like that. And I think you also mentioned that you're based out of Atlanta currently, or?
Yes, I'm based out of Atlanta now.
Yeah. Okay, you can make those connections. So, okay, what exactly got you or inspired you to get involved in cannabis? And I guess, how does food science play a part in the cannabis industry?
Yeah, so it's weird. So I was never a smoker. Again, I went to the University of Tennessee, go Vols. And we know how to drink there, so that's what I did, when in Rome. But never was a smoker, never really engaged in any of that. So cannabis truly came to me well into my 30s, and by opportunity of getting into the industry. Two things kind of happened at the same time. Here in Georgia, there is a lady that wanted to organize a cannabis conference, medical cannabis conference specifically. And she herself is an environmental scientist, has background with, cannabis, and someone in her family has helped, but she needed a formulation scientist or a formulator, a product developer, whatever you want to call it, all same thing, on her team. And so she found me through someone else. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to learn more about what you're doing, fell in line with it, boom. So I was a part of that organizing team. Simultaneously, someone that I used to work with at Burger King Corporation, she has a cousin in the cannabis industry who's actually very well known, youngest Black dispensary owner in the country, in Maryland there, Ms. Wiseman. And so basically same type of deal. They were going for a larger area of the business, had some resumes, people that they wanted to kind of add to their application and do some work behind the scenes. So I was like, yeah. So for about a year and a half, several of these opportunities were coming to me in like 2018. And so finally, mid 2019, I was like, well, it's time for me to just form my brand. I've been doing this, so now it's time to just make it real. So here we are.
Guys, so you've been doing the formulation aspect for probably like for how long exactly? 3 or 4 years?
Formulation of cannabis?
Yes.
Since late 2017, early 2018.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're very involved. So you've seen pretty much all aspects of it.
Yeah.
So I guess, can you kind of somewhat describe your experience? So a client comes to you and they say, hey, I want to make maybe a product or formulate something, or maybe like a food or a beverage. Is this necessarily only applied to edibles, or like exactly how is it applied? Like what would someone come to you for, like a formulation?
Cannabis
like,
bubble gum. Like how they do
that. Truly though. No, anything. So I tell people all the time, it's hard to understand, but it's really not with the science thing. Everything is 100%, like everything. So everything equals up to 100%. So the sub of that is various percents, which is a formulation. So that said, especially anything in the food, drug, cosmetics area, I tend to get tapped for, not drugs, but you know what I mean. Like, so lotions, potions, chewables, candies, gums, and beverages, all types of things. Having that background and following the FDA and the food code so heavily, you have to kind of know what all goes into the back of that. But all of it kind of is regulated in the same area. So yeah, people would come to me when, let's say, I've got a brand, I've been working on this brand, selling this brand. Right now we're small scale, but I want to scale it up. And I need a formulation, because what I have now, I'm going to have to partner with the manufacturer. And I don't want to be going through all the research and development again, because I've been doing this at my house in a recipe in my kitchen. Now I need something big. So that's what I come in, and I develop a specification. So your formulation is broken down to all the ingredients by percentage, your good manufacturing practices, your GMPs, how to get from point A to point B in the processes, your critical control points, all of that. That's where I would work with you to develop that, take that to a manufacturer, make sure we solidify your IP on that product, and all they do literally is just produce it for you. They're not involved in any of that because you own it.
Exactly. So I guess tell us a little bit more about your brand specifically, Dope Culinary. So does it cover the formulations and consultations, or are you actually involved in making some of these goods yourself?
A little bit of both. So my brand is federally trademarked as a consulting company. Thank you. As a consulting company. So consulting and on the areas of product development and food formulation within the cannabis industry. However, of course, there's always going to be some R&D and some test products on this side as well, especially when I'm working with various CBD brands here locally that, want to start in the kitchen. I'm a developer. That's what I like to do. So if I can get in there and be in the back, then yeah, I'm going to do that as well.
Okay, very, very nice.
What happened to don't try your own supply? What happened to that?
Whose other supply would I believe in? You got to believe in your own brand first, right?
True that. You know what? You're right.
I have a horror story of trying, because I dabble in the edible creation space myself, and been concocting butters and brownies and all things of the sort. And I just have a track record. I'm not sure if you heard any of the previous episodes, but I have a body count when it comes to my edibles. It just take people out, It's just deceptively strong and everything like that. But yeah, I'm a little familiar, but probably not to your level, but I'm a little familiar of, the infusion process. But yes, can you kind of explain that then? How do we get cannabis, or the feel-good aspects of cannabis, into our foods or into our products? Like, how is that done?
You just drop it in, isn't that right?
No, it's a little bit more intricate than that. Well, I won't go over the whole process because you have to pay me for that.
She is trademarked, y'all.
Okay.
Of course.
Well, I guess like a layman, probably in a summary, a Spark Notes kind of version. Like I'm familiar with decarbing. Like, okay, when you get maybe back in the 60s and 70s, they just took a bunch of weed and it just dumped into a pot and it was like, all right, we're going to eat this. What's going to happen? And I'm familiar with, like,
Glenn, isn't that what you do sometimes?
No. It's a little bit more empirical than that.
I'm just messing with you.
Yeah. What's up, friend?
It's good.
So basically, like decarboxylation, decarbing, I'll say that. I have a hard time pronouncing the full word, but decarbing is a part of the process. And, from there, which means basically preparing the cannabis for use in a way, or infusion. And then from there, it can be usually like a heat application process or something of that sort.
Yeah, that's if you want to use that process. There's all the basis of it is you need to get an extraction, whether that be from a plant. Some people buy materials that are already extracted, but there's a way to do it. But again, if we're talking larger scale, some people just buy that triple, quadruple the price, just extracted cannabinoids, and then they dose it and put it in that way. So the extraction into whatever formulation of your product is dosed correctly, not just I'm gonna get you messed up, dosed correctly for whatever. And that's an exact science. That's where we separate the amateurs from the folks who's really doing it. And the science to get to your correct dose literally every time, so that if someone were to go back and try to, it's hard to do, but to go back and get the potency of your product from a lab, and that's literally the risk of you having a brand or not. So that's where that's kind of where that comes in. So yeah, dosing your product correctly, packaging, selling, making sure your product calls out all the things it needs to in regards to your state-by-state guidelines, et cetera, and then scaling up.
Understood. Yeah, we all definitely know the importance of dosing. Definitely not my strong point. But we'll get there. I might have to give you a buzz and be like, yo, Charity, help me out here.
Right.
Taking too many people out right now. So I guess with that, one thing I guess we recognize in America and just internationally, any of the markets that have been open to legalizing cannabis is, I guess, understanding the difference between, CBD and THC. Now, do you get a lot of people that come saying, hey, we need a CBD product solely? I guess considering that was the first, product or first plant to be federally legalized, as we're still trying to, develop, or this country's still trying to develop a market suitable for THC or weed, THC to be fully legalized in, the United States. I guess, can you help us break down what's the difference between the two, CBD versus THC, and I guess why some people would want to use one product over the other?
Sure. So both of them are cannabinoids that stem from the cannabis plant. When you go over 0.03% in THC, you now have marijuana. If it's less than that, it's hemp. CBD can be extracted from both marijuana and hemp because essentially it's just very baby, cannabinoid again, but stemming from the same thing. They're basically cousins of each other. But one of them, once it has heat applied, will cause an intoxication effect. I hate when people say psychoactive because they're both psychoactive.
Okay.
If you feel different, it's psychoactive, right?
Sure.
But one of them has an intoxicating effect and the other does not. Both of them cause, though, because they're cannabinoids and they interact with our endocannabinoid system, both of them cause an internal homeostasis imbalance to get you basically not just, your nervous system, muscle system, whatever, but get you back on track through your endocannabinoid system, which basically touches all of your lower and minor nerves.
Gotcha. So when you say endocannabinoid system, that means essentially we're built to receive cannabis or cannabinoids in a way.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
Are very really the only source of cannabinoids that we receive is if you were breastfed as a child. Breast milk has a strong source of endocannabinoids that interact obviously with the child's endocannabinoid system. But to that, it only goes, to obviously a certain amount of time. Most people run about, start to get off of that. So then the rest of your life, the only thing you have built up are those endocannabinoids, again, if you were breastfed. So the only way to replenish them, nature has something for everything, right? So the only way to replenish them is to get it with the plant, right? That should be federally legal, because if you really knew about the endocannabinoid system, we got to get it from somewhere.
Wait. Hold up.
Interesting.
Hold up. You telling me babies is running around high?
No, not intoxicated, but they do run around balanced, because if they were breastfed, they're getting those endocannabinoids, which just kind of, it's almost like an immune system. Like, you want to have as much as you can to stay right.
You're saying be careful. You probably just blew up the breast milk market right now.
No. Pirating breast milk. That's what's up. So I guess when you speak CBD, THC, we break down, I guess, THC, the marijuana plant, as opposed to hemp. I guess you also probably have to deal with indicas and sativas.
Yeah.
And I guess, can you help us break down, I guess, for those that don't know, what's the difference between the two, and why we should probably care about that?
So those are both different types of strains. There's actually indicas, sativas, and hybrids. Indica tends, in its effects, whether it be intoxicating or just psychoactive effects with CBD, because CBDs have indica, sativas, and hybrids as well. Indicas tend to slow us down. They create a very heavy, tiring, slow effect, what people call stuck. Sativas tend to be, you'll still get those effects, but they give you more concentration. People, when they start cleaning their house or start cooking or doing folding their clothes and shit, that's because they done got a hold of a sativa, you uber productive.
Thanksgiving dinner.
Thanksgiving dinner. A hybrid tends to be somewhere in the middle, obviously, but our bodies naturally respond to one or the other. Yeah, but truly no plant is really like one or the other. The way these genetics are doing these plants these days, the only way you even discern if something is an indica or sativa is a sensory type test, with people literally smoking it, however many people in however many control group. These people say, I went to sleep. These people say, I want to fold clothes. And that's how you determine if it's an indica or sativa, through the base strains. You know what I'm saying?
Every time I smoke, I go to sleep, bro. That's why I'm non-productive. I don't know why. I wish I could be more active and actually fold some clothes because I actually need to fold some clothes. But it's kind of interesting how like it impacts people differently.
So you would skew the numbers then if they threw you in that assessment.
Bro, I would be not. Yeah, bro. Yo, I mean,
it don't matter what strain. This man out.
Yo, talking about Glenn's concoction, man. I was in a corner and passed out after having one of Glenn's fusion. Like was that the chocolate?
Oh yes, the
that you sent to me.
Chocolate, triple chocolate. I called it the Portia Williams because they're like really thick brownies. Like thick.
Those brownies were no joke. Glenn got me in the corner and passed out.
Yo, don't mess up my cousin, man.
Told Charity I had a little body count here. You know, it's like
that's what he said. That's what he said.
But yeah, I was kind of curious about that too because I noticed. I guess everyone's body is receptive. You know, I guess take it different, like you know, the Charity like. Every strain, doesn't matter sativa, indica, or hybrid. I feel like it's always putting me in the couch, like always putting me under. So I guess that this could be the way that I receive.
Yeah, that could be it. Because again, and all of that depends on how fast you metabolize food in general, but especially cannabinoids, because that's a different process. You know, it depends on your water intake. It depends on your fat content. I mean, truly all of it. And then even, you know, how much you work out, how much your body takes in oxygen, it all matters. So.
Gotcha.
So question, being that, I mean, I guess considering it, when you talk about dosages and things of that nature and how we kind of look at, you know, other, you know, pharmacological medication, you know, we usually try to establish some kind of standard for, okay, like this is, you know, 5 milliliters for this amount of body mass, or do we have that kind of thing for these cannabinoids as well?
Well, you know, we have a general like guide to like, if you're this many pounds at this many age, you know, somewhat experienced or not experienced, this is how much you should be starting with. Generally, everybody, the standard dose for any adult is 10 milligrams. So that's for most people when you'll be able to start to feel it. Depending on what it is, because a candy will be different from a cake, it will be different from a beverage, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact of the matter is, like with other foods, well, like with it's other herbs like oregano, rosemary, all the antioxidant effects, you know, of things we know like that. We don't have that type of research with cannabis because it is illegal, federally illegal. And if we had federal money, particularly through the FDA, like we do for every other and all these programs and grants and things, you know, people in my discipline had been a part of, we would really know how. So for example, and within the food industry, rosemary is a natural antioxidant. So therefore, sometimes it can be used as a preservative when people want to make a no artificial preservative claim. If we knew how cannabinoids interacted with food in that same way, because we've had the money and the time and the years to research it, we'd be in a whole different world. Now, there are people like me and other people within the discipline that can make anecdotal, you know, kind of do research. There are true scientists that are doing this, but not nearly on the scale that we could do if it were federally legal, just because we had the money and the body and the resources to do it.
Sounds like it really leans on like private research and academics. Basically.
Private research, academics, and then people that aren't afraid to step out of the cannabis closet, quote unquote, and speak on behalf of the plant. Because I mean, it's federally legal. People have things to lose. So am I going to keep my job and do this? You know, I got a family, It's a lot of things that go behind that.
Yeah, and I think one thing I've heard from a lot of people getting involved in this space is that it's really an advocacy effort first before you actually get to launch your business. It's
Facts.
Like
you have to be dedicated. You got to want to do this, because again, you know, when I told my parents, they were like, what? Well, first of all, they were confused. Like,
Tell us about that.
You know, it was, so I have two sets of parents, a mom, a dad, stepmom, stepdad. So there's that. So I had to strategically, this is the Virgo of me, decide how this was going to go first, second, third. So I told my dad first because, just to be honest, he probably is the most familiar and judgmental.
Yeah, you just exposed that, man.
I mean, dads are easy too.
So I do have one question. So I'm not sure if we touched on this already, but with the negative stigma around like just marijuana and, is that space kind of getting better over time, do you think, or is it still very still there as a society, do you think?
I think overall, there's always gonna be people that with any vice, liquor, tobacco, blah, 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 there's always going to be people that have something to say. But the more this industry is opening up, literally state by state, I mean, it's every other month, somebody is reconsidering it. It's back on the ballot. So-and-so made this, even the Senate, as of last week, were proposing bills for just federal legalization. Now there's pros and cons around that too, but it is being talked about more. During the pandemic, more legal and Black market cannabis was bought than any other time, that it's truly been really in a market. Like, people are relying, sitting at home, reconsidering their whole life and their whole path, okay, and relying on cannabis to do so. So what it was even just 5 years ago, again, I even think of my thought, I never judged anybody that smoked it, but I wasn't going to or be involved with it at all. Now I don't drink like at all. I, use CBD products or whatever when I'm, out and about, just because that feels better. But I've gotten too old to be, blacked out, laid out somewhere because I had too many tequilas. I'm trying to be nice.
That's real.
For real.
You ain't trying to be like Fran in the corner.
Exactly.
Hey, you know what?
Exactly.
Don't come at me, cuz. It happens to the best of us.
It's like that, and also like, I mean, I'm not gonna knock alcohol, but we can't front like alcohol doesn't do more damage on the body than anything else. You know what I mean? Like, you're literally ingesting a poison to get a feeling that's literally doing damage to your body over time. Let's not even talk about the alcohol addiction rates. Like, come on.
Right. And then that too. And then, just the feelings that our bodies take on. It's totally different. And like I said, feeling alcohol can truly bring out the worst in people. Whereas marijuana, I mean, generally, you sitting with your higher self, kind of just vibing. Ain't nobody
minding your own business.
Minding your own business, right?
Exactly.
Like clearing trauma and shit, as opposed to making it,
Like,
yeah, no, I think we need to get more marketing on it, because I think it all really comes down to marketing. I think you said it last time when we were talking about marriage. Marriage is sold to us as this really important thing, and I think that's the same way like a lot of things in our society is. Liquor and all this stuff, and I think until marijuana kind of gets to that level as well, I think some of the stigma around it will still kind of be there, especially from a corporate standpoint too, because I think a lot of us from a corporate standpoint are super nervous to like really put ourselves out there, like, hey, I'll do this on my downtime, but they're like, are you really gonna say that in front of your boss?
No,
of course not.
You wouldn't say that. You wouldn't say that.
Yeah, but you can tell your boss like, hey, want to grab a drink, right? But it's like it's kind of one of those things that we're not. It doesn't seem like we, as at least from a society standpoint, we need to kind of get there for sure.
Yeah, we do need to get there. And I mean, again, I think we will. I think we're not going to have any choice. I know in Georgia here, state in certain positions, for state things, they won't be required to be drug tested anymore. The NBA is doing that. So there's bigger than anything. There's like a shift, right? Do we want people? Or are we going to be concerned about what they're doing on their weekends if they test positive for THC? Now, this ain't crack cocaine. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a little weed. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's different. It's levels to this.
Yeah, exactly. And we've even seen the shift too with even like some of the major, I think it was like either Amazon or Google that recently stated that they weren't going to drug test or pressed for drug tests on like THC or like marijuana or things like that. So the workplace is definitely changing. I think like one of the main hurdles to add to Francis's point as far as like the legalization is it's a disruptor. You know, it's essentially going to possibly bring down larger industries, larger markets that until they're in a position to capitalize on it, realistically, no, we don't want this to happen if it's going to tap into pharmaceuticals or any one of those other major industries where it's like, all right, these are now the medicines that we're giving. These are now the products that you can use to treat certain conditions. And you don't have to go to the doctor or refill that prescription every month or every week. You know, it's like, it's actually geared towards healing the body and making it better.
That's
So
exactly right.
it's a big disruptor. That's another scary thing for some people out there that are invested in these multi-billion-dollar industries.
That's a really good point. I always thought of it as a disruptor for the tobacco industry. I always thought that was a big thing, but I never actually really thought about it as a disruptor for the pharmaceutical industry.
Once again, like the cannabis industry, as it was legalized in California in the 90s, I think 98, it was legalized for medical use. Like the reason it's taken the FDA, the USDA, and all these people, the government, so long to understand how, when, and why to legalize it is because, as you said, they're trying to figure out how to capitalize on it first. How are we going to regulate this? How are we going to put taxes on this enough to where we get our cut? Because they know the power. People are going further and further from big pharma and the pharmacy industry into holistic care so much more now than they ever have. So yeah, they know exactly what they're doing by stalling, and that's they're trying to figure out how to capitalize off of it. The more cannabis that heals so many ailments in the body, the less FDA clinical trials I can have to make money, which take forever, sometimes the trials go through, sometimes they don't. Another 30,000, like that's just how it goes.
Exactly. All right, so let's get into some of these healing aspects. I understand you do your own infusions as well, and why would one want to consider ingesting their cannabis as opposed to maybe just smoking it or vaping it? The traditional methods, why would one want to now eat their cannabis, essentially?
So, once again, cannabis is an herb. So that's just like we eat all the rest of our herbs. This is an herb meant to heal our bodies from the inside out. So when you eat cannabis, if you're talking about like an intoxicant cannabis or a cannabinoid like THC, and even CBD too, but especially THC, it is ingested, metabolized a different way. It's metabolized through our liver and not just, sidereal high, like you have when you smoke. So, cerebral high, So it takes longer to ingest, but the effects last much longer, tend to be much heavier and much deeper as well. With that comes the homeostasis much faster as opposed to just smoking.
Got it. So essentially, when you metabolize it and you eat it, you can get a more fulfilling, sustaining feel experience. I won't say high, I will say experience, because you could be taking CBD or THC. And essentially, it would also last longer. One thing I realized for myself, particularly, I would say that I am traditional in the sense I prefer to roll it and grind it. I mean, I hail from the West Indies. It's kind of like one of our little pastimes, like to roll and grind and roll up and get the split real nice and fat, but I found that, dealing with the cooking process and usually infusing it into my foods has a little bit more finesse to it. It's just a little less, I guess, of a stigma when it's like, hey, I have this baked product that you can partake in.
And no one's going to smell it and all the rest.
Exactly. There's no smell.
So more about discretion then? Is that what it's really more about?
Discretion, again, the stigma, even like you said, rolling up, people, when you smoke, you get that smoker's lips and, all of that. Like people in the boardroom, as you mentioned in corporate America, you can't be going, you can't have all of that. How am I going to be an attorney? How am I going to be be an attorney going to represent somebody, which I have a few of those people, by the way. Like, and I got these black lips smelling like you can't do that. No.
Do I smell weed?
At least not yet. We're not there yet.
I got ganja. That smell. Yeah,
I mean, yo, Glenn, tell us a little bit. I mean, I want to know, how do you actually put it into your food? Do you just like rub it in and drop it into the whatever?
Yo,
I don't want
we on the same
what
way.
what does
We both said the same.
I'm just over here like, yo,
You just drop it in a pot and then
you just drop it and cook it and there you go, or what? What's the process?
I wish. I mean, that's
Please,
probably how they did
explain.
it back in the
It's
day.
the cake
but of course,
topper.
Charity is the expert on that, so I will drop that, for the infusions. If you need someone to formulate for you, definitely look up Dope Culinary RXNS on Instagram. But what I say, my little elementary process, the little research, you got to prepare the herb first, activate it. And then it's actually
define that. What do you mean by that?
Activating means it's called decarbing, and that basically means you put it under heat to actually activate the component that you're looking for in the product. Because if just raw bud is just gonna have no benefit to you. You can't just like swallow an ounce and be like, oh, I'm gonna pull. Your body your body has no way of pulling any of that out, like as she mentioned before as well. So got to decarb first. And then I use like this old traditional method of mixing water and butter and under heat, and just letting time and heat do the work for you. And then from there, after you pretty much boiled it or simmered the product with whatever you're trying to infuse it with, you allow it to cool, and then it separates. And then from there, you can use it for whatever purpose. If you're trying to bake, cook, or whatever, depending on what medium you use. If you use oil or butter, a little bit of a different process for each, whatever your outcome is, or whatever your end product you're looking for. It depends on what that is.
Great. We just made like a whole bunch of home chefs right now.
That part.
Yeah, there's a tree. It's not that simple though. You got to definitely do it right, and without the know-how, you'll end up getting sometimes really bad product, or you'll get really potent product, and
you don't know your dosage.
You don't know your dosage.
Then you get people mad at you.
What? Like I was high for 5 days,
or I wasn't at all. So what happened? And see, there's nothing worse.
I'm like, what's the worst part?
Exactly. There's nothing worse than trying to create some clientele and some customers, and these people don't know what they're gonna get from day to day, from time to time.
Yeah, that's a problem. So I guess what's your tips for Charity for a enjoyable first time edible experience? Like, what are your tips for a first timer? Like, hey, this is what you should do if you get a product.
Definitely, again, ask for the dosage, depending on where you're getting it, but ask for the dosage. If you're at a dispensary, ask them to help you to understand, how you should consume. Sometimes there'll be packaging to kind of advise on that. Again, the standard dosage to start with is 10 milligrams, depending on if you would like to feel intoxicated. Guys, believe it or not, there are some people that do not eat edibles to get intoxicated. They eat edibles to calm a nerve or reduce inflammation or to go to sleep because they don't want to take doctor prescribed pills. Sometimes it's not all about the high, right? It's all types of things that people use cannabinoids and use the plant for, all types of medicinal purposes. So know what you are looking for, when you are starting your edible experience. Get a proper dosage for you, your body. Learn how and when you best consume it. And then, work your way up. Start small, work your way up. Find the products that work best for you. Some people do well with cakes, pies, and cookies, and some people, those type of people sometimes can't feel beverages just because of the way it's metabolized. So learn what works best for you and your money, and then just stay on your journey.
Yeah, definitely great facts there. Like, don't rule them out. I know one of my big issues, I disrespected the edibles. I'm like, what is this? What is this gonna do? I'm in Canada somewhere. What is this gonna do? Like, really? And then 5 days later, you're like, okay, I'm still feeling it. I'm jittery. Everything hurts. Like, not it hurts, but it's like, you got the jitters. Like, you had too much caffeine sometimes, or you just can't move. Like, you just just don't want to wake up.
Yeah.
Golly, what
Yeah.
kind of
Seriously.
I don't want none of that.
I remember I had a cookie, and I was in Canada for a bachelor party, and I probably was for 2 nights, 3 days. I was high the entire time. I was high the entire bachelor party.
How many cookie did you had, Glenn?
These were some homemade goods. That's probably
That's
why
already the problem.
I just respected them. I'm like, what is this little shit gonna do? You know what I mean? And,
It's just chocolate. It's just chocolate.
and yeah, I found out. I learned that day. I definitely
learned the hard way, huh?
I learned the hard way. So definitely take Charity's advice. Find out your dosage. Particularly if you're eating from friends, I would say cut that joint up into pieces and work your way around. But for the legal market, everything has a dosage. So, and a part of my experiences, I've been to like Nevada, Cali, Canada, all the legal countries and states, and the people there are definitely willing to help you find what's right for you. So
the bud tenders, the people in the dispensaries, they're always going to be, that's what they're there for, education.
So let's talk about some of your infusions, dope culinary. What have you been cooking up lately? What's been, on your radar? What's been on your shelves lately? What's been going? People been taking? And I see your Instagram. I see you got like the salad dressings, trying to catch people out here eating their salads and all that.
That salad dressing.
Yeah.
Salad
she had like
he's out here, bro.
Dope culinary reactions, again, is an innovative and a formulative, truly, there's not anything, we can't infuse over here. If it, some things we would not advise in infusing, but so sweet, savory beverages, again, chewables. I've worked with people to put infused THC into toothpaste for gum swelling and things of that nature to reduce inflammation. So I mean, you're asking me.
That's a lot of information.
I'm just saying, tell me what you want, and that's what you'll get over here because I can truly infuse anything.
I'm curious about the stuff you can't do. What are you not supposed to do? I'm curious about
I know, right?
That's what you said. Some of the things you don't advise. So
what are those? I know, right?
Well, just because the effects, you may not feel them. So if you're trying to infuse some greens, I mean, these collard greens we're talking about, that may not be as effective as the cornbread. Like there are things you should just strategically decide what you want to infuse. Don't just be out here trying to infuse everything.
Man, if I had cornbread, I think I'll have too many of those. And man, y'all gonna have to drag me out of
we're gonna infuse some jollof rice.
I have done that once before. I've infused cornbread, mac and cheese, wings.
I'll be scared to come to her place. I'll be like,
man. She said beans, greens, potatoes, beans.
Like,
Yo,
she
Glenn,
literally said that, bro.
Yo, that reminds me of college. Remember in college? Y'all remember WAP in college? Remember when we used to drink WAP in college, right?
Who is drinking WAP? What are you talking about?
WAP is infused alcohol, bro.
Do you know what WAP means? I know what WAP means.
WAP in college, not the WAP that you're talking about.
Okay.
WAP in college is a fusion of drinks that also you can't taste the alcohol in it, and you just like have like 10 cups.
Oh, kind of like
jungle juice. Jungle juice, exactly. Well, in college we call it WAP, but anyways, but yeah.
I need. What is that? What are those?
What does it stand for?
I don't know what that's what we just called it. I don't know what it stands for. It's just a word. It just oh man. But yeah, just kind of reminds me of jungle juice, which is I guess more acceptable term to use for it. But yeah, no, man, you're gonna mess some people up with that because you're gonna keep eating it. Like this is tastes so good.
Man,
tastes so good.
Mac and cheese. My mac and cheese is bomb too. I just made an apple pie.
Mac and cheese.
I made some
potato salad
apple
too.
Pie. I made a peach cobbler. The peach cobbler is banging. I mean, truly.
You say you in the ATL area, right? Is that what you said earlier? Are you located in the Georgia area? Okay. Because I'm gonna be out there soon. I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to get me some
pre-order. Give me a 2-week pre-order. I got you.
Yeah, and she's from Mississippi and Tennessee, so she come from all the places that know how to throw down. So
Yeah,
it's like
basically,
I'm gonna have to hit you up because I am gonna be out there.
Basically.
So
it's like if she already cooks good on top of the infusion, I'm all there. You know what I
Yep.
mean? To me, it's kind of like you got the best of both worlds.
And I mean, y'all, I literally truly do this. I am a product development food scientist. I know how to make it taste. I know how to make it do what it's supposed to do.
The textures, the taste, the high.
and just know I'm a baby at this, and you gotta take it easy on me. Like don't be like
50 milligrams or more. That's it. That's all you need, bro.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because I'm a rookie at this.
I mean, that means just don't go ham on the peach cobbler. You gotta take it easy.
Exactly.
I mean,
I tell
that's-
people stop eating the peach cobbler so fast because
Can't
she's
make it
gonna
so
be out of
sweet.
here.
Like it tastes so good.
I know, right? I couldn't stop myself.
Yeah, that's definitely a craft in itself, like an art to master taste. 'Cause I could definitely say some of my first creations were just like, bro, like, what did you do? Did you just dump an ounce in this? Like, what's going on? And it's like, to me, it takes away. Like, I agree with Chad in that sense.
Exactly.
It takes away from the experience because you're like, all right, some people actually like the taste of it. But to me, it's kind of like, I want you to taste the product and feel what you're supposed to feel,
Exactly.
like, so I definitely agree with that in that sense.
It
So
needs to be palatable overall. Like no one wants to buy something and the whole time you think you're about to truly eat a joint. Like they want to enjoy their experience of what it tastes like.
Exactly. So looking at your background, I guess, could you also fill us in, like, starting Dope Culinary, being a person of color in the space, what were some of your challenges, getting started and, going from the formulation side, getting started, getting involved, like, what were some of the challenges that you experienced?
I mean, definitely. I think, honestly, a lot of it, it's just having people understand the reasoning why you kind of need a food scientist. I have to say, like I would tell people this all the time, I think I'm a little like ahead of my time, like, because the thing is, people, when they want to get into the industry, they either want to be a grower, a dispensary, all these different things, the basic that truly, unless you play your cards right, do not make you money. The money is made in the areas where people have a void, whether they see it or do not, because at the end of the day, when this industry does bust wide open, just like, I mean, the food industry of the 60s is not what it looks like now. Back when you used to have a milkman that came to your door, every day. Now you just go and buy it at Kroger. That is a part of the industry because people scale up. They need to make things faster, quicker, more efficient, to be more profitable. It's going to be the same with the edible industry on this side. And there will be people that, again, I can't sit here and tell you a little bit of this, a little bit of that, when I'm trying to scale up my product to make, 30,000 pounds at a time. I need a formulation, but it takes time for people to learn. There are a lot of people who I work with a lot of brands that consult with a lot of brands who are really trying to be forward thinkers, not even just on the formulation piece, but we brainstorm on what's next on their section of the industry, how they could take it and, and flip it. Again, I've been in a lot of places and worked with any food brand you could ever name. I've worked with them. So it's having those connections and that network to just understand what can be done too, outside of, just the, I want to, make an edible.
Facts, because definitely one of the main things I think people miss too, to chime on that your point you made, is that everyone thinks in order to get involved you have to be a grower or like a cultivator or a dispensary, and particularly because it is still illegal, a lot of people, I notice, like especially people of color, are going to have issue finding the money to get those businesses started. And it's not even just finding the money to get started, but being able to sustain the business as well. It's a very expensive industry for those particular aspects. But what we've seen, people like yourself, are these like ancillary services that, are basically kind of just blending what we already have today, but just allowing it to kind of encompass a new facet or a new industry. So you're just taking your existing skill set and now saying, okay, what do I need to learn about the plant and how can we incorporate it into these products? Because definitely edibles, if you take a look at what's going on in Canada, edibles will probably be a big part of America's market.
Edibles is a billion-dollar business in Canada. I mean, it's happening. It's happening. And again, you know, the more and more people get educated and learn about the plant and want to start experimenting, it's not always through smoking. You think about elderly people who don't have lung capacity, more susceptible to COVID, et cetera, et cetera. You know, they want to enjoy the effects just as
I'm just thinking like
so
grandma rolling the joint, like, oh, yeah.
No, grandmama is about to have that little piece of honey, you know, on her biscuit or in her tea, or you know what I mean, or she want a little chocolate, like to feel
Like, you got a headache,
effects.
baby. You got a headache, baby. This is a cure that headache.
So no, the edible industry is a growing industry, and it's extra on top of, you know, you're going to get the smoker. So then why not build on this platform where you can create, you know, the smoker's got a wife who don't want to smoke, or the smoker's got a, you know, cousin, whatever. They're going to always come in for that, but then you sell them on that.
Facts. Yeah, definitely. It's discreet. You can really control what you're getting, and it's just fully tested. You got great minds like yourself that are behind the process and the formulating. So it's just like, there's definitely room there, a lot of room for entry there, people to get started. So yeah, definitely something to consider for our listeners out there that are wanting to pursue, you know, an aspect of the cannabis industry, and probably stuck on where am I going to get the money to do this, location, the real estate, all that. Like, definitely different ways to approach it. So I guess I'll get to our final point here before we close. And once again, thank you for your time. But what are your hopes for America's cannabis industry within the upcoming years? Like, what are some of your major hopes and, you know, wishes for America's industry?
I really hope that it's able to, you know, truly expand into the business, you know, that it can be. I hope that as we're expanding, they take those people and in the legacy markets and consider their expertise, consider they've been the cannabis entrepreneurs, you know, on the Black market longer than any MSO ever has. I hope that they also initiate social equity so that Black and brown and disenfranchised communities that have suffered because of the plant, that they're put on a not even level playing field, a higher playing field for being disenfranchised. It's not always equality, is equity. So there's that. And I also hope that, you know, again, more than anything, Black people who have been doing this, and, you know, records are expunged. Like there needs to be across the board a total slate wipeout before you begin to grow an industry on some bullshit. Basically, like what you sell, you're gonna read. So make it right, make it make sense, then start your industry. So bigger than all that has to do with even the profit that I haven't even gotten to, and again, the advances wiping out. I honestly hope this industry does put a big dent in big pharma, and I have my own, you know, reasons for that. But I've seen big pharma hurt more people than I've seen it help, and I know the power of this plant, and which I won't go there. But you know, I just hope that more than anything, there is kind of an awakening, a destigmatization of, you know, the propaganda that's been around it, and that people see it for what it is. It's an herbal plant, you know, straight from the ground with several healing powers that if you learned about, you wouldn't be so afraid of.
Facts. You definitely touched on, you know, quite a bit there, with especially on the social equity front, and, you know, as far as how the inception of it overall. I'm just curious, have you seen the show 9 Perfect Strangers at all?
No.
All right, well, it's a show on Hulu that pretty much glamorizes, in my opinion, it glamorizes mushroom uses. If you're familiar with like psilocybin, the effects of it, it's basically like a show based on the therapy session of the induction of psilocybin as a medical treatment and usage. Highly fictional, not saying that it's probably not going on somewhere else out there in the world, but it was just an interesting thing. I would say definitely check it out. You know, being like a cannabis supporter myself, it's just kind of interesting seeing how, you know, basically in media, the perceptions of certain drugs or the use of certain drugs. I don't even like to call cannabis a drug. Like you said, it's It heals. It's a plant. It grows from the earth. I mean, aspirin, it's man-made. That's a drug. So it's just like, all the aspects that go into it are just, amazing, as you pointed out. So for people to get more information about you, if you're out here, you're trying to make something, and people that are trying to get into the edible space, if your state allows edibles, you're going to need, if you're trying to do wide scale, you're going to need someone to formulate, do the formulation for you. You're going to need a food scientist, whether you're doing an edible, food, or beverage, you're going to need that. Or if you just want to find out more information about Dope Culinary Charity, can you drop us the info one more time for the people in the back, how they can find you, how they can reach you, everything?
Absolutely. So you can start by visiting my website, www.dopeculinaryreactions.com. Everything you need to know about the brand, about the company, the services we offer is listed there. You can find me on Instagram at Dope Culinary RXNS, that's short for reactions. And you can learn a little bit more about the brand. I have daily tips, daily education snips about cannabis, things of that nature, and edibles. And you can also email us at dopeculinaryrxns@gmail.com.
Awesome. And that's for consultation, food and beverage, and even if they're trying to do like topical products and things like that. Legit businesses, please. Not just any Joe Schmo off the street.
Please. I don't have that type of time. Don't come tell me, I mixed a pound in my butter and then I throw it in there. I ain't trying to hear that.
What I do next?
Exactly. This what I know. Please go away from me with this. Come to me with a real brand. You done sold something, okay? You have a clientele. You have a recipe. You know what you're doing. You know how to dose. Come to me when you are ready to launch a food and beverage product. Not when you try to figure out how to get it from Baby House.
That's funny. And definitely orders. Like next time you have your bachelor party, your wedding, your baby shower, all of that stuff.
For sure.
I'm curious about that mac and cheese. I love me a potato casserole and all. I'm curious about that mac and cheese too.
Man, mac and cheese is hitting. Okay,
right,
you better ask about it. It's hitting.
Yeah, we're gonna have to connect. We're gonna have to connect one day. Do a little change.
Yep.
Well, thank you for keeping it cultured with us today. For more content or to learn more about the podcast, feel free to check us out at Jerk Jollof Collar Pod on Instagram. Podcast episodes drop every Wednesday. And although this is our second to last episode before we go on our next planning hiatus, we may have some separate content pieces in the work through the end of this year to keep y'all cultured as we plan for the next season. So be sure to follow us at Jerk Jollof Collar Pod on IG. Stay tuned for the outro coming up right after this to learn additional ways to reach us and send us your feedback. Be sure to like, share, follow, and or subscribe. Like what you're hearing, feel free to leave us a review on your preferred streaming platform of choice. As always, stay safe, stay blessed, keep it cultured. Peace. And special thank you to Charity once more for joining us today and chopping it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
And that concludes today's episode, but that doesn't mean the conversation has to end. As a matter of fact, feel free to check us out at JJC Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter for our post-discussion question following the release of this episode. If you are a Black or minority business owner or professional that would like to be featured on the Rep Yours segment of our show, or a listener with some general feedback for the podcast panel, feel free to shoot us an email at jjcpod@gmail.com. As always, likes and comments are always appreciated. Be sure to subscribe or follow to be notified when the next episode releases. And until then, stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.